From safari adventures and travel updates to conservation and humanitarian stories, this is Africa Revealed, bringing you the heart and soul of East Africa. Now, here's your host, Dr. Matt Jensen.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Africa Revealed with Dr. Jensen. What is Kenya's most exciting reserve that's not called Maasai Mara? I'm going to share my thoughts and my answer to that on today's episode. But thanks for joining us once again. You know, I love talking about the wildlife, the people, and the culture of Africa. I get to see Africa from multiple different lenses. As you've been able to follow along over the last several episodes, we're talking about the humanitarian work. We're talking about culture, wildlife, parks, reserves, and I'm just glad that you're on this journey with us. Again, I'm always inviting our viewers or our listeners to put your questions or comments in the comments section. What do you want to hear about? What's an episode that you would love to tune into? We'll take a look at it and we'll see if we can put together something that you want personally, that I'm sure a lot of others have had the same thoughts or questions about. So, okay, let's go back to our initial question. What's the most exciting reserve in Kenya that's not called the Maasai Mara? Well, first of all, there are so many national parks and reserves and conservancies throughout Kenya, throughout East Africa, and I've been able to visit just about all of them. In fact, even multiple times, and I've got my little personal list of favorites. Now, I'm not going to reveal all of them to you at the same time, but today I'm excited to talk about. I would be dishonest if I wasn't saying that this is, if it's not my favorite reserve, it's right up there. And I take tour groups there multiple times a year. It's almost always on my list of reserves to see if we're only specifically doing Kenya. If you're doing Kenya and Tanzania, this particular reserve might be off the beaten path a little bit, but there are bush flights, there's ways to get there, and I hope that you'll consider it. So, going to give you a hint. This particular national reserve and this general area is home to the Special Five. Now, you've heard of the Big Five, right? These are the animals that everybody wants to see when they go to the Maasai Mara or the Serengeti. By the way, quick side note, did you know that the Big Five is not because the animals are big? It's not because they're the most popular. Most of them are pretty popular, but no, did you know the Big Five comes from back in the early 20s and 30s when the word safari in Africa mostly meant a hunting expedition. Of course, safaris now, with the great protections that our animals have, are not hunting safaris. There are, unfortunately, some animals that could use help with population control, and there's special permits you can get. We don't participate in those, but that's what the Big Five. So the Big Five comes from back from hunting expeditions, and the Big Five was supposed to mean the animals that were the hardest to bring down. Okay, not the hardest to spot, although a few of them are more difficult to spot. And I don't know if I'm going to reveal the Big Five because that's not what we're focusing on, but you can go do your research, and I'm sure we'll talk and focus on each of the species in the Big Five in a future episode. But the hint I'm giving you for one of my favorite reserves, if not my favorite reserve, is the Special Five. Now, I left off one word. It's actually the blank Special Five. The word starts with an S. Maybe you got it. Yes. We are going to talk about the beauties of Samburu National Reserve. Now, the Samburu Special Five are found mainly in that northern Kenya circuit. Now, there's other parks where you'll see some of these animals, like Meru National Park, perhaps in the Laikipia area, but mainly they call it the Samburu Special Five because that's kind of the general area where they're more concentrated. We'll talk about the Special Five here in just a few minutes, but what makes Samburu National Reserve one of my favorite places to visit? You know, if you visit Samburu National Reserve, the landscape is a bit different. There's these incredible, beautiful, rugged mountains, and not mountains, they're more like knolls, right? More like hills. Some of them are pretty big, but it brings such a variety and beauty to the landscape. And they have kind of a red hue to them. And so, in my opinion, Samburu National Reserve is home to some of the most stunning beautiful sunsets you'll ever see. If you're visiting Samburu National Reserve and you want to have a sundowner, and by the way, if you don't know what a sundowner is, it's an extra safari experience where your lodge will set up a beautiful table of drinks, wine, a few finger foods, a campfire, and you get to have a beautiful sundown with your favorite drink. It truly is a magical experience. And in Samburu, when you have a sundowner, not only do you get that beautiful sundown, but the glow of those orange rocks becomes so vibrant. And then, of course, when you see the abundance of the elephants and the giraffes, which, by the way, are so abundant, in my opinion, you see more giraffes, more elephants in Samburu National Reserve than many of the other parks and reserves throughout Kenya and Tanzania. But there's something about those rugged, rocky knolls and hills with the beautiful sunsets and that orange glow in the late afternoon and evening. It's just spectacular. Not only that, Samburu is home to a few of my more favorite safari camps and lodges. Now, we're going to highlight some of those lodges and camps over the upcoming episodes, because one of the biggest things that affects the enjoyment of your safari is the place you choose to stay. Now, there's some people who think, well, I don't really care. As long as there's a bed and I have meals, I just want to see the animals, and that's great. However, African motif, African style, and decor, and can really bring you into a little bit more of an immersive experience with your camps or lodges. A lot of more luxury camps and lodges have amazing views from where they're set. Anyway, we'll get into that on other times, because those lodges and camps are absolutely stunning. But that is why Samburu is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, reserve to visit. The animals are abundant, the sunsets are magical, and the environment and landscapes are truly unique. Okay, let's talk about the Samburu Special Five. Do you know what they are? Have you been able to Google it a little bit? Okay, here's the thing. Samburu Special Five, here's what they are. I'm going to tell you, because we're not going to spend a lot of time. Again, this is not a wildlife episode, because I will have other episodes where we talk about some of that wildlife, but here they are. It's the Grevy's zebra. Now, they do look different than the regular Maasai zebras or African zebras that we're used to seeing in pictures. They don't have as thick of stripes. They're much thinner. They have more white on their underbelly and white along their hooves and legs, and they're bigger in size. You could definitely spot them, and they look different. The reticulated giraffe is one of 3 giraffes found in East Africa. And reticulated giraffes are mainly found, now you can see them in other parks and reserves too, but they're mainly found in this north central Kenya circuit area. But they're beautiful. The patterns are a little bit more distinct than the Maasai giraffe or the Rothschild giraffes. But the Rothschild giraffes are pretty beautiful as well, with all those beautiful white legs and underbelly as well. Okay, so after the reticulated giraffe is the Somali ostrich. These are kind of a really, I don't know if I'd say the word odd, because I don't want to offend my beautiful ostrich friends, but they are a little bit odd. You'd normally think of the ostrich as the dark feathers, the long pink kind of skin-colored neck and legs. Well, the Somali ostriches they have gray legs and necks, and it's kind of odd. Now there's variety in the colors, but it's kind of a distinct gray. They're really unique that way, and you only see them in the area of Samburu in north central Kenya. And of course, I'm going to say my favorite animal in all of Africa. Not a joke. It's not just because this is an episode, but I'm going to save it to number 5, because actually on my list over here, it's number 4. Number 4 is the Gerenuk. The Gerenuk is an antelope species, but they call it the giraffe gazelle because it's got these long necks. They're a little bit smaller and they're quite nimble, but they're, again, a really unique type of animal that you only see in this area. Okay, my favorite animal, and this is another reason why I'm excited to talk about Samburu, because Samburu is one of my favorite. Again, I hate to say indefinite absolutes, right? Because you'll put me in the Ngorongoro crater, and I'll tell you how much I love that too, but I never miss an opportunity to go to Samburu. So this episode, we're not only talking about Samburu, but my favorite animal. Let me describe it to you first. It's got the most silvery, shimmering coat, gray silver coat. It's a very muscular animal. It is in the antelope or gazelle family, but they have these long, slender antlers. But the beauty of that silvery coat, the muscular kind of appearance, it's the Besa oryx. Oh, I love the oryx. If you haven't, we'll have some pictures up here so you can see these beautiful animals, all 5 of them, because they truly are unique. So when you include Samburu National Reserve, it becomes an extra bit of a challenge because now you're going to go over to the Maasai Mara or Serengeti. You're going to try to spot the big 5, which that's what everybody does. Definitely do it. It's amazing. I love those animals. I'll give you a hint. The lion is one of them. Besides the great wilderness migration, the number one thing everyone wants to see is big cats, and they are beautiful. But now if you go to Samburu, you've got to check off the big 5 plus the Samburu Special Five. And did you know there's another famous 5 in East Africa? That's right. It's called the Ugly 5. And I feel bad because I don't want the Ugly 5. That's a terrible name for them. Why are we calling them how about the Unique 5? Or I don't know. Let's think of another name, but we'll cover the Ugly 5 in another episode because they can be a little elusive. A few of them, I should say, can be a little elusive to find as well. But you can see now all of these animals and their different groupings and types makes for an amazing safari when you're willing to get off of the beaten path and come to a place like Samburu. So why are the Samburu Special Five only found in this north central Kenya area? Well, one of the reasons, and it's kind of lead us into the next unique finding or unique aspect of the Samburu area, is that these animals like and live and thrive in a more arid environment. It's much drier. It's much hotter compared to the Maasai Mara and Serengeti, where it experiences those colder seasons and they have much more higher and greener vegetation. But that's one of the reasons. So that takes us into the next kind of unique aspect or things that you're going to see when you visit Samburu National Reserve. But Samburu National Reserve is highly associated with the Ewaso Ng'iro River. Now, the Ewaso Ng'iro River is not kind of a naturally occurring river. It is naturally occurring, but it's dependent on the rains from other areas. But when it rains, it gets really high. It's this really active riverbed that can fill up with water during the wetter seasons, and it can get pretty dry in the drier seasons. Now, the Ewaso Ng'iro River is crucial to this area of Samburu and north central Kenya because it is literally the lifeblood of that area. There's not a lot of other tributaries or lakes or other water sources. The Ewaso Ng'iro River becomes crucial to the wildlife. Luckily, it's a really big river, and so it does collect a lot of water. In fact, if you look at your Google Maps or some other map aerial view and you zoom in to the Samburu area, the green line on that map is the Ewaso Ng'iro River because it provides beautiful green vegetation to that area, which some animals need that green vegetation to live on. So not only does it provide water to the animals, it provides water to the nearby vegetation. So it provides a source of food for many of the animals that live in this area. So the Ewaso Ng'iro River is also home to where many of the lodges and camps have built their facilities. So you can end up having this beautiful view of the river because the animals come to the river often. So sometimes right there at your lodge or camp, you get to have an amazing safari because you're going to get to see the animals right there while you're having lunch, right there while you're having dinner. But you can just see from right there in your lodge or camp just how crucial that water source is from the animals and the wildlife nearby that depend on it for the water and to water the vegetation so they have additional sources of food. Okay, now another thing that you cannot separate from a visit to Samburu is the Samburu tribe. Now, when people are planning safaris with us, almost always or a good percentage of the time, they want to go see the Maasai tribe. The Maasai are a massive tribes there in the Great Rift Valley, and they love Western visitors to show them their culture, the way that they cook, the way they build their villages. And it's a great, unique, very authentic experience. If those of you who have been to the Maasai villages, you also know that they love Western money and they will dicker with you and they will negotiate with you to buy their goods. And that turns some people off, but they're just trying to make a few bucks. And so sometimes their social norms when it comes to negotiating and high pressure is not the same as ours, but it's a wonderful experience. But many, many, many years ago, hundreds, thousands of years ago, the Maasai people were also related to the Samburu people. In fact, they came from the same tribal lines, but one brother wanted to go to the Rift Valley, another brother wanted to go farther east, and so he went and settled in the Samburu area. Now, if you get to visit both a Maasai village and a Samburu village, you'll see some subtle differences, but a lot of similarities. The way that they build their homes is very similar. However, the Samburu people not just use sticks and mud and poles and straw and hay, they also use more modern type of materials. Like, for example, they'll use trash, plastic bottles, big unused tarps as part of the coverings of some of their structures. They also seem to be a little bit more vibrant in their color choices. They love yellows, greens, blues, and reds, where the Maasai people like to favor mostly reds. And so you do see a little bit of a difference, but the way that their piercings in their ears and their nose and their rituals are very, very similar, again, because they share some common ancestry. But you can visit a traditional Samburu village just like you can visit a traditional Maasai village when you visit Samburu National Reserve. Okay, let's bring it all together here. So between the beautiful, beautiful landscapes, the beautiful sun, and the colors of Samburu National Reserve, the Ewaso Ng'iro River and the way that it supports the wildlife and supports the lodges and camps and the beautiful views, and of course the Samburu Special Five and the Samburu people, makes for an amazing experience when you choose to go off the beaten path. What's the beaten path? The beaten path is from Nairobi to Maasai Mara, over to Serengeti, the Ngorongoro Crater, down to Amboseli, and back. That's kind of the main Kenya/Tanzania safari circuit. But if you have extra few days, or if you've decided you want to spend more time in fewer areas and you're going to Kenya, I urge you to consider Samburu National Reserve so that you can experience some additional wildlife, the Samburu Special Five, some additional cultural experiences, the Samburu tribe. And you can have an amazing experience and not feel like you've sacrificed anything. I love the Samburu people. They are just as kind and just as welcoming as the Maasai people. And so that can be an added experience with other areas when you choose to visit Kenya on your safari. Thanks for joining me today. I hope this was an exciting episode, and I hope it's motivated you to get on your computer and to start Googling and start searching out what a trip to Samburu National Reserve or the other surrounding areas to Samburu could be for you when you go on your safari. I'm Dr. Matt Jensen of Africa Revealed. Thanks for joining us for another episode. Make sure to check us out on social media and drop your questions or comments in the comments section because I love reading them. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Africa Revealed. Join us again next week as we uncover more of the wildlife, wonder, and stories that make Africa unforgettable. Until then, adventure awaits.